Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Girl Hockey Dad podcast. I am very excited this week for a few reasons. Number one, it didn't take 3 weeks in between recordings to get a new episode up. That's a big positive, I think. Secondly, we have a fantastic guest this week, so you don't have to just listen to me ramble on for 18 to 20 or 30 minutes. I am super excited to introduce Rachel Flanagan, the former head coach of the University of Guelph Griffins, the current PWHL assistant coach, and you know what? She's going to tell you the rest. I was super lucky to catch her on a very busy week. She is the head coach of Team Canada at the Rivalry Series, which is tomorrow in Kitchener, Ontario, and I believe in the Sarnia date as well. I will let her do all the talking because she did a fantastic job of going through her portfolio, where she started out, and how she got to where she is now. If you haven't noticed at this point, I'm very lucky to live in a city like Guelph that is full of hockey talent. It's easy to forget when you're walking around a university all the time. I'm sure a lot of people can, well, I'm sure anybody who lives in or grew up in a university town where there is a presence of either a men's or a women's team of any sport, you get used to seeing people around that you can easily forget have really come a long way to be in the position they're in, and they give back to their community by doing kids programs or camps or anything like that. And Rachel Flanagan is that person. She has been giving back in the community and is just the most approachable person in the world. So it's easy to forget that she has the accolades that she has. And I won't say much more about it. I'll let her do all the talking. I just want to thank everybody for coming back for another episode, and I'll see you on the other side.
I have never done a podcast.
Come on. Oh, yes. Katie, too. Same thing. Oh, my gosh. I'm so proud. I got to admit something. So as soon as I went and did a quick background check on you, I did that thing where I was like, oh, Rachel's a bit of a big deal.
Stop.
I won't force you to go through your litany of awards and everything else. I had no idea you had so many Coach of the Year awards in the OUA. What I really didn't know is that you had an overall Coach of the Year award in all of U Sports. I did not know that. That's sick. That's a pretty big deal. Don't shrug that off. That's amazing. But then, yeah, you are the only head coach to take the women's team to the national title, correct?
Yeah.
And you have 3 years of OUA inside of OUA titles, and then the one overall, right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, you've done a ton with Guelph, which is incredible. To be honest, I said the same thing to Katie. I'm sort of more interested in how you even started your hockey journey in the first place, and then I'll probably jump a little bit to the stuff that's going on right now, which is super exciting. So, in seeing that you played for Great Britain,
yeah,
which, again, hey, Rachel at the rink, I never knew this about you. I'm so sorry. I feel like a complete schmuck. Where did your minor hockey start, and how did you wind up playing for Great Britain?
So my parents are immigrated from England before I was born. So I was born in Canada, and they moved to a small town, and being the expats that they were, decided they should put their kids in hockey because it was the Canadian thing to do. They knew nothing about the sport, had never played it, never probably even really seen it much. And so they put my brother in hockey and they put me in figure skating. And I did 1 year of figure skating, and I was a chimney sweep in the carnival. Woo! And I said, I want to play hockey. That looks a lot more fun. So, it's amazing when I think back, like my parents are pretty, they're pretty straight and narrow, and like they kind of, I think, pushed a little bit to let me play. I played in a boys association. There wasn't really girls hockey much around. There certainly weren't girls hockey associations. And so I played in a little association called Manverse. We didn't even have a mascot. We were just called Manverse. And we're about an hour east of Toronto, near Peterborough. I went to high school in Lindsay. And then after, when I got to about U15, I transferred to girls hockey in Peterborough, played there for a couple of years. And then when I jumped to U18 level, we didn't have a AA program in Peterborough at that time. So I ended up playing senior women's hockey. And it's so crazy when I think about where I am now and the people that I'm surrounded with. I played against a lot of them, like Jana Heffert and Vicky and Geraldine Heaney. Like they were all playing in the kind of the original CWHL. Way back, and so I joined this team. I was 15. I couldn't drive. My parents had to drive me to practices, and like the women on this team were done college. A lot of them were working. Some of them were already like well into their 30s, and I was this 15-year-old. And like I just think I was so lucky that I had a coach that I really did think that going in, I knew a lot about hockey. Like I thought, I pretty much knew everything about how to play hockey, as you do when you're 15. And
yeah, of course.
He had a really big imprint on me. And it's funny because one of my teammates that really took me under her wing, her name's Heather Richardson, and she is a ref now, or was for a long time. And she actually left for a bit and she's back reffing. And I see her at the rink. She's a pretty high level in women's hockey. So I see her at the rink and it's just so crazy to reconnect. And I played with Cass Turner, who coaches at Quinnipiac. She's the head coach there. And it wasn't until, we were done university and walking through a parking lot after I got the Guelph job and I ran into her. We hadn't seen each other since we left, Peterborough. And this was before Facebook and you could keep up with people as easily. And so I was like, Cass, what are you doing here? She's like, I'm coaching. What are you doing here? It was just such a really weird story. So sorry, I'm jumping around a bit. Anyway, I played.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I played a bit in Peterborough. And then I played for this women's team out of Peterborough and then went to the University of Guelph, played there for 5 seasons, and then went to teachers college at Lakehead for a year. And there weren't a lot of teaching jobs when I finished. So in the summer that I finished teachers college, Jeff and I got married, and then we went to England. And Jeff had a kind of a coaching job lined up there. And he was, really going to be the coach in the family. And I was just going to kind of follow him around and teach. And I had my personal training background. So I thought I can kind of work anywhere. We went to England and we both found teaching jobs really quickly. He was kind of coaching part-time with the men's pro team there. And I just found a women's team that I could play on. And it was actually really expensive to play hockey in England because there's not a lot of rinks and it's not a big sport. Yeah. It's also expensive here, and so I found this women's team and just asked if I'd like to play, but I can't afford to play. And if I agree to coach, like be a player coach, will you let me play? And so they did. Huh. And so that was kind of my first coaching outside of, minor hockey or being in university and helping out with the minor hockey kids at camps and stuff. And so I did that I taught in England and did that for about 2.5 years. And after the second season, I was able to play with Great Britain in a World Championships, which was hosted in England. The year before it was in Australia. And it was hosted in England the year that I was there.
Oh, so you got ripped off.
I did, but it was a really neat experience. And, and I really treasured kind of being part of a program that was still so young, and it's still young, but they're doing some good stuff over there, trying to build their program a little bit. And then I came back and applied to be an assistant coach with the University of Guelph team, just to help out while I was going to teach. And then I was going to help part-time at the university. And at that time, the university was going through a bit of a transition where the coach was on a 9-month contract and they wanted to make it a full-time, full-year position. And so he was my coach when I played at Guelph. He encouraged me to apply. And so he's like, I'll be good to get an interview experience or whatever. And so I applied. And I think a lot of things sort of aligned in that moment. I was an alumni. I was a woman. I was young. And I ended up getting the job, which, wow. Looking back again, it was another opportunity that I got just from kind of being in the right place and someone taking a chance on me. I probably didn't, I definitely wasn't qualified for it. And I really wasn't. And then just sort of tried to surround myself with people that knew the game and had experience, that were willing to basically work for free almost full time to work with me. And and that was 16 years ago. It's crazy. It's crazy to me that it's been that long.
That's insane. You that means that you hit the ground running with Guelph. Like once you started your coaching career with Guelph, you started to see success almost instantly.
Yeah, I was only 27, but I inherited a really good team. The team itself was good, and that's one of the unique things about Guelph. I think it's really not easy. It's not that difficult to recruit to Guelph because it's a great city. It's a great campus. We've got lots of programs, and I knew so much about the school. I didn't have to learn anything. I already knew because I'd been there. I'd played there, and I think the biggest thing about recruiting is believing in where you're recruiting to. And I did consider some other jobs along the way. And I just don't know if I could have recruited to something that I wasn't sure I believed in the program. And I really believed in what we were doing at Guelph. And I really believed in, and still believe, obviously, in the, the way that the department tries to support its athletes, and that the academic requirements to be part of the school. And when you graduate, you have a good degree and there's good experiences available in a really safe city. So to me, it was always a bit, pretty easy to recruit. And then it was just trying to, once we got players on campus, it was more about, selling them on what we could do for them as coaches. And I mean, I say we because it feels like Katie's been there forever. She hasn't. She obviously played for me. I recruited her. But it feels like we've been doing it together forever. So
your whole story, this is, I had no intention ever of my first two interviews being Katie and then you. There was supposed to be a gap. Like, I think when I first told you guys in passing, I was in my mind, I'm like, well, I have to lock down these two because I want to chat with them 100%. But in hearing even Katie's sort of recruitment story, how she wound up playing for Guelph, your whole through line from CWHL or even Peterborough all the way through almost feels the same way as Katie's, where I'm like, okay, so now when Katie tells me, oh, I basically ran into Rachel in the parking lot and she was like, hey, maybe you should come play for us. And I was like, yeah, that tracks.
I can remember Katie graduating and or even in her final year saying she's going to go to teachers college. And I was like, don't do that. Like, there's no teaching jobs, and give me a year. I'm going to see if I can get a full-time assistant. And I think back and think, like, she also will probably say how when she came into coaching, she was so young and hasn't really known a coach other than her junior coach outside of me. Right. Like there was,
right. Yeah.
I coached her and then I was the head coach. And so, the experience that she's getting this year is so important for her development because now she is the one that's having to make the decisions and make the small changes. And she's killing it, obviously. And we all knew that she would. But, and she's had opportunities to go to FISU and then actually work with other coaches and see what they're doing. And, and so I think it's really good for both of us right now because she's learning to be her own coach and I'm working with coaches who know so much about the game that right. I'm gaining a whole new understanding of, just the details and some of the areas of the game that maybe even are things that I hadn't really thought about before. So it's really good.
So you're segueing beautifully for me. I really do appreciate it. That wasn't a plan. You know what? I'm going to go back to you with one question, and then I'm going to jump to some new stuff. You and I know Katie and I have talked a lot about this, I would say, year jumping when it comes to kids making their way through now. And so you were 15 playing with, Vicky Sanahara and some of these incredible hockey players. You're 15, they're driving themselves to the rink. Some of them are years on, and you were lucky. You had a great coach. You have a fantastic experience, but would you take a 2-second insight comment on how you feel about underagers? That is a situation that we'll rarely see again. I know there's an 09 currently playing at 16U at Rochester BK from Slovakia, I think. Yeah. And I think that's a rare occurrence now. So how do you feel about it?
Well, I think when I did it, I didn't have a choice. Like there was nowhere else. There was no, I wouldn't even have occurred to us to do it if we'd have had a AA program, you know, in the center that I was in, because there's so much opportunity now. I already feel like the U22 age group has decimated the U18 age group through no fault of their own. It's just, that's just the way that the league has developed. And it's changed the development pathway of a lot of young players. And I think that every U18 age player should play a year of U18 unless they are given exceptional circumstances. So I think U22 teams should be limited. This is, you know, obviously personal opinion. There should be maybe two player cards that are available to, you know, 16-year-olds or whatever the age group is there. And everyone else should be at least in their second year of U18, that U18 group, because it's a 3-year group. And if so, everyone gets 2. And then there can be an exceptional policy for maybe to apply for a third, for maybe that's someone that's like an 09 or an 08 or whatever. I'm not sure exactly where the years are at right now, but because, and the reason I believe this is partly because you have a huge social gap between somebody that's in grade 9 or 10 and somebody that's in grade 12 and even doing a PG year. It's challenging, I would say. And it's taking away from the development of those young players. Unless you are a really special player, you're not going to have the puck enough. You're not going to be able to make decisions that you're going to be able to make in U18 AA because the game's coming at you faster. Players are stronger. I just think it's, you know, there's no rush. There's no rush to get there. And I think U18 should challenge a player. And if it doesn't challenge you that much, then you should have 60 points, or you should, you know, never get a goal scored on you, or whatever it might be. Like, I think it's everybody is so quick to want to move up. And I just think we lose a lot of our young athletes lose a lot of development time and leadership opportunity to develop and grow when they move into a, you know, as a 15-year-old, they're playing with 20-year-olds or 19-year-olds. And how are you supposed to learn any kind of leadership skills other than observing? There's great leadership there, but you don't ever get to be it. And then it's, you know, by the time you get to that 18-year-old age category, you've always, you know, you've never really had the chance to work through what it looks like to actually be a leader.
Wow. I'm going to package that. I'm just going to package that and I'm going to send it out. No, I mean, I've had conversations with, you know, I got to be really careful. I never want to name drop anybody during these things, but I've had conversations with people that are in the NHL system. I've had, you know, that don't even understand what the benefit is right now. And we're seeing it. It's not like a little bit. It's this coming into this next year. I'm so interested to see what happens when we're hearing U15s jumping straight to junior, skipping 18 altogether, or major year U15s going straight to U18, like skipping their major year U15 going into U18 only for that 1 year and then jumping to junior. And I don't know, I asked Katie the same question and you just answered it, but if you feel like, or if we feel like the end goal has been just for the sake of the title to move up, or if it benefits the player at all, or if we'll even see the effects until years down the road. You and I just the other day were talking about a young, phenomenal player who, in your eyes, wouldn't be ready for the senior team. And there's still a process. There's still, and if you're a young player who wants to say play OUA, play NCAA or post-secondary of any level, you can't get there any faster. Like you're going to have to go through the system and develop. And it does feel like they're losing the chance to, like you say, learn the development, the leadership skills, the puck touches, the adapting to the speed of the game. It's much different, right? I got reports from today. This will be where we jump, but I got reports from today about how your practice looked at getting ready for the Rivalry Series, because that was a public practice.
Yeah.
And a coach friend of mine was there, and he just said pace is high, and he could see a few players struggling to adapt. There was a few that were, I think, new names that he was sort of like, it took him some reps to really get into it. And those are players at literally the top of their game.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think, and I totally agree. And we've got some younger players that are on our roster, and for them, I'm not, partly it'll be the pace will be faster, but partly it's just, trying to find their game within this game. It's
Right.
hard because, on all their college teams, they are being depended on to create and to be the person that's, driving a lot of the offense.
Mhm.
Where when they come here, they feel all of a sudden like they have to take on, a fourth line role. And what does that look like for them? And trying to find that identity and balance. And I do think that as young players that maybe jump, into the U22 too quickly, they don't ever get a chance to be the person that's like, I think in every age group, like that's why we have minor and majors that go together. So the minors often, feel that they have to earn a little bit more and they get used to the pace and they drive themselves forward and they create, then they become majors and they know how to do it. And then they're pushing the pace a little bit and then they become minors again and majors. And so I think that's part of the, like, I don't know if women's hockey should move to a single year of birth. Like I think the boys are just, they have everything, right? Like U13, U14, U15. Would that slow it down or would that create, is there enough girls playing yet? I don't know. I don't know the answers to that, but it'd be an interesting, like maybe there's, and the same things would happen. Like if you created a U16 program, for example, where, girls, maybe a U16 team gives them a chance to feel that they are in the highest group of their age group without having to make that jump to the, the
force
U22.
themselves into U18 or into U22. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's actually, I know you've probably heard that episode that we did on U16, but we talked about this and why it doesn't exist and could it be a benefit to try and bridge that gap between U15 and U18 and or U22 to make them understand this is your grouping of the top players in this age. And this is where you will get the best development and learn the most between now and when you want to play junior.
Yeah. And I think like there's a lot of U22 teams. And so when there's so many and the desire is to get there quickly, you do end up with younger players making the jump quicker because they don't want to stay in their home system. And, like why would you stay Cambridge U18 AA if you're not ready for the Cambridge U22 team, but some other U22 team will take you? It just doesn't make sense to me to go. Like, why not stay, be called up to the team? I get it. I'm not a parent in that situation, but as a coach looking from the outside, sometimes I think,
but you're who needs to say it. And I want you to say that right now, because from a coach's perspective, you're already calling out the benefits. And that's and it's all the center jumping and kids going all over Ontario to play on different teams. And if your daughter was going to play, I mean, if you're already in the system, you've played a year of AA, U18, and you get called up, I totally understand that. But if you're going into your minor year of U18 in Cambridge and you have an option in Stony Creek to go play junior, is that the right call? Does that make the most sense? Like, I mean, I'm using Stony as an example, and when they've been, a national heavyweight for the last couple of years, maybe, but I that's the point that I want to hear from you.
Well, I also think it gets complicated by the coaches at the U22 level. Like, I really, really believe that the U22 level coaches, your job is to develop. Your job is not necessarily to win. Winning is part of development, but when you are recruiting at all ages to bring the very best players to your team, if you can't then develop them, and it's all about like the sell of winning, because inevitably when you put the best players together on a team, you usually win at that age group. Like, there are reasons why you wouldn't win, but if you can bring all the best players together, it's like having a U18 Ontario team and on the ice every day. And
you're going to have a great record.
Yeah, and you're billeting players, and I sometimes I just think about, like, we've watched boys junior hockey just make mistakes and do things that, you hear these stories, all these horror stories about, trauma that the kids have gone through living away from home at such a young age and all the different things. And sometimes I think we're doing the same things. And some of it I think goes back to coach education and how hard it is to develop coaches and how minor hockey coaches, like, if you're not being paid for what you're doing and you're giving up a lot of your time, it's hard to ask someone then to go take an $800 course. And I know the associations will pay for HP1 and HP2, and those are fine, but those are very structured courses, and there's limited learning that can happen there. And to me, it's not necessarily geared towards the women's game. And that's not fair to say, but I think there are things that I'm passionate about in the women's game that just differ a little bit. And I don't know sometimes if the women that are in the room at the HP1 and HP2 clinics that are coaching, or even the men that are coaching women, I just think sometimes things get lost. And I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I think coach development has to be the baseline. And I think that's why players jump, is they think that they're going to win with the players that are there, and they're going to win because it's the coach that's there. And if it's a great coach, then, go for it. But if you're going,
you think it's pushed, you're saying it's pushed by coaching and winning. And I do understand that. You may have just connected all the pieces in one shot. If you're at that level, of course, you're most likely a non-parent coach, but it's some pay, no pay, tons of time, tons of investment, and you just want to show the most wins at the end of the year, and you'll do whatever you need to do that. It's like you said something there about you see things or want more or different things out of the women's program, and I wonder what that looks like, if you can even verbalize that.
Well, I think some of it is like having women coaching. I think that's some of it. And I think the reasons why women don't coach is one of the biggest barriers. And a lot of it is to do with like social structures around families. And, that's stereotypical, but I think that happens. I have a lot of girlfriends that I played hockey with who are married, played varsity hockey and are married, and their husband coaches and they don't. And I
don't get that.
It surprises me. But and some of it is that they don't really want to, and that's okay. But I would love to dig into why they don't want to. Is it because they don't think they know? Like, there's a lot of, obviously, when you look at, when there's all that research around, if men see a job posting and they're only qualified for 2 of the 10 points, they'll apply anyway, but women need to have at least 9 of them to apply. So is there that happening? Like, I do think that happens. And I also think, my personal opinion is that often, women struggle to coach women, and sometimes women struggle to be coached by women if there are differing opinions about, how the game can be played. And I just think it's harder sometimes. And so I don't know why, but that's the starting point. I know Hockey Canada is trying to do a good job of getting more coaches in the game. And when I think about all the years at Guelph, I go around the rink now and I see so many former athletes of ours that are coaching. And to me, that's like, part of it is giving back to the game, but part of it, I feel a little bit of pride that we've obviously not left them with a terrible taste in their mouth about what it means to, be coaching young women. And that's always been a really big part of our coaching philosophy at Guelph, is that you need to have women in your lives who are going to lift you up and support you and build you out from a confidence instead of competing with you. And that message needs to get to the younger players more often. It doesn't usually come from the men in the room, because they just don't know. They know inherently, if they've done some research or talked to some coaches, they might know that that's part of their job, but it's not the same if it's coming from, a guy usually.
Well, and that's another question that I keep asking over and over again. I know in Kitchener, there's a girl who she could very well be playing U22 right now, and she's coaching and helping out when she can. And I'm always asking her, like, where are all your teammates? Where are all these people who have aged out? Why aren't they coaching? I wish they would. As a man who's coached for years at the highest levels of house league, I I just constantly look at it and I'm like, oh man, why am I coaching? Why are any of us out here coaching? Like, you don't want us. I want you to hear this from, I don't know anything. If I'm on the ice and Katie's on the ice and she asks me to do something, I'm like, why do I have anything to say? I have no idea compared to you standing on the ice right now with your history and everything you've done. So I hope they figure it out. I hope they do.
I really do think that there's so much room for experienced male coaches to mentor female coaches, though, young, old, whatever. Like, we can't do it on our own if we don't know, because there's no one to show the way. Like, there's very few. Like, I'm still, when you look at the OUA and the number of women that are coaching, it's obviously increased in recent years, but across all sports, it's if you look at college sports across Canada and the US, it's pretty shocking that the number of male to female coaches of like women's sports.
Right.
And there's a lot of mentorship, I think, that needs to happen for women to feel confident to grow the game, but also to be able to fight off the parents who have this, preconceived notion that they can do it better, especially the dads. And that's just, they grew up playing and they, watch NHL on Saturday nights. And a lot of it goes back to the social structure where, a lot of women aren't sitting down at 7:00 on a Saturday night to watch the hockey game because they've got other stuff that they're doing. And it's I know that's stereotypical, but that's the truth of it. Like,
I agree.
That's a huge part of why, why there's not as many women coaching, and we need to sort of, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we need permission to be able to do it. And
that's insane, but I hear you.
You need support of somebody else to be able to allow you to do it as well. Especially if you have kids.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, as a dad with 2 young girls, I have had this conversation. My youngest asked me the one day, I forget what it was, but maybe they were playing ball hockey or something. And she's trying to tell me this story about these boys who don't play hockey. They're just out playing ball hockey, and they're telling her how good they are. And she's like, I play AA hockey. Like, what are you talking to? Like, you don't even play organized sports. And it's this like blind confidence that is inherent. It just exists without anybody telling them that it's just this thing they have. And I'm guilty of it too. And you said that about looking at a job posting. I've thought, yeah, I have definitely done that, where I've looked at something and gone, I fill at least one of those slots, but I could pretty much flub my way through the rest. That's a thing that we have. And I'm constantly telling my girls, no, don't shrink away from any of that. Like, you have all of those abilities. You need to show up that same way. It's that same level of confidence. But I do understand, and I'm sure it's a mentorship thing that over time, I just hope that it's going to change. I got to be careful here. I'm sucking up so much of your time. I just see this now, but I want to get into 2 things very, very quickly, which sucks because now it feels like I'm going to have another interview with you and let you talk more. So the first thing I want to do is congratulate you for being the assistant coach of the PWHL Toronto franchise with Troy Ryan.
Thank you.
That is really funny if you think about a conversation we had like 6 months prior in the hallway of the university when we were talking about, man, there's some rumblings, some things are happening, who knows? And you made some comment like, you will wait and see what happens because there's some GMs maybe, or they're looking at certain GMs and who knows what might happen. And then all of a sudden you're there. You guys just finished camp in Utica, and today rosters got finalized, which is incredible. I'm still super grumpy because I missed out on tickets again today. So how excited are you for the season to start, and how have things been for you so far? Like, the experience as a head coach from a prominent university, how are you feeling about this transition right now?
I actually have had a conversation with a couple of people in the last probably 24 hours about, I'm loving it. Like, I'm loving it. And I'm in awe of, just how skilled and talented the athletes are and how hard they work and how much they deserve this, because it's been a really long time coming. But also working with Troy and Mike and Steph and Jer, like, we have an incredible staff, with Gina as our GM as well, just such amazing experience within the staff. I feel like my mind is blown every day with things that I go like, I can't believe I never thought about that. Or, man, it's so much more detailed than I remember or that I imagined. Like, it's just, for someone that's been in the game a long time. And one of the best things for me is that I am an assistant, because I never got to be one. And there's probably people that are more like better fitted for the head coaching role and assistant coaching role. And it's been for 17 years, me making all the decisions, learning what I can learn, talking to people, trying to implement new stuff. And then, then I had these little opportunities with the national program where I would get to learn from some other coaches, and I'd always come back totally refreshed and have all these new ideas. And that's what I feel like every day here.
Wow.
So it's been incredible so far, but I also really miss the university age athletes. Like I have this, this sense of it's such a different experience. Like my job here is to really work towards creating better hockey players. And yeah, there's a human element, of course, to that. But in university hockey, I feel like my job is to create better humans. And the hockey is the vehicle that I'm using to help influence people's lives. And I think there's going to be a little less of that at this level. So I'm really excited for the season to start, to figure out how I feel about all that. Because for a long time, I place a lot of my why and my, like what I take out of my life and my job and was about the people. And I'm sure I'm going to get that here, but it's just a bit different, because I feel like the young women that I've had the privilege of coaching for so long at Guelph have impacted me as much as I think I've impacted them. And you're just a little bit more hands off with the pro group. So we'll see.
And is that, no, I was going to say, I feel like that's probably a learning curve for everybody right now, though. You've got a mixture of, you have some studs on that team that have been around the game for a long time in a professional capacity, but this is a whole new thing. This is a new beast. So I'm sure, as much as you're feeling that, they're probably feeling something similar, that this is different.
Well, and I think every coach that's in this league, or the majority, have only ever had the experiences similar to what I've had, other than the national team experiences. Like, they've all been college coaches. They've all worked with younger people, like the up and coming, and then a little bit of time with the senior women's team. But there's not been a pro league. So, Mike Ellis, that's on our staff in Toronto, he spent time with the Leafs, and he spent time with Tampa Bay doing skill development for those programs. And he's one of the only ones who really has been in the pro world for a long time. And before that, he coached in England, and all these things where none of us really have that to draw on, other than the people we know and we've met. So it's just it's a really different experience for all of us. And so who knows where it'll go. Like, I do think there's going to be an element of the human side that's going to be really important. And culture development is the same in any team that you're in, whether you're pro or, U8. You need to make sure you have good people and develop those people and the leadership and all of those things that I'm really passionate about. So hopefully those skills that I have will carry over into this league. It's just, you just don't have as much touch points with pro athletes.
I do. I hear what you're saying. I was going to say I understand, but I of course have no idea what you mean to some extent. No, it's super exciting. I know, as in the last 24 hours or however many days since ticket releases started happening, I'm sure you're starting to get the sense that this is a big thing. Like, this is huge. I mean, we're going into tomorrow, you also coaching the Rivalry Series between Canada and the US, to a sold out crowd in Kitchener. And I'm hearing now Sarnia is likely also sold out. Like, this is a big deal. I get emotional when we go to a Griffins game in Guelph and there's, a couple hundred people in there. I'm like, yeah, we need more of this. And I was lucky enough to make it to Peterborough for a PWHPA event that was sold out. They did it on a family day, which made perfect sense. A full building was incredible. You have to have a sense that this is a moment in time. I mean, you've been there. The fact that you started off the conversation with, oh, by the way, I also played with Vicky Sanahara and some of the most legendary players on the planet. It's like, that's neat. I don't understand that. That's cool. But now you're in this. It's all come to this point. So I'm assuming you are feeling that level of excitement as well.
And I think, it wasn't an easy decision for me to take a year. It was, I have the opportunity if I want to go back, and how could I not be part of this. Like I feel like everyone that's involved this year just feels so grateful and excited to be part of something that is just such a long time coming. And there's been different iterations where we've tried, but this league it's going to go, and it's going to continue to break all the barriers and all the stereotypes that go with, nobody wants to watch women's sports, and there's other sports that have done it before us. And they're killing it. And I think, we're finally at a time where we get to do it. And honestly, the quality of the product on the ice is going to it's going to wow people. It's going to be fast and physical, and it's like a rivalry series game every time. Like, it's really going to be something. That. And when you've got full buildings, like, these athletes have have rarely felt that. And I think that's going to just create even more of a experience for the athletes, but also for the fans that are there. It's going to really ramp up the speed of the game. And you've only got 24 games in the regular season. So it's, it's going to go fast. And well, it's like there's like weird gaps because of the rivalry series and the international breaks. So we have these 24 games, they're spread out across a long period of time, but every time someone can come and watch one, every game is going to be meaningful. And, the playoff structure, I don't even know all the details of everything that's happening with playoff structures, but it'll be exciting, I think. And hopefully, I wish I knew, hopefully there comes a time where people aren't complaining that they can't get tickets because we're playing in a building that's big enough to host. And if we're playing in 10,000 seat arena and people still can't get tickets, that's amazing. Right. And I hope that there's games that can be moved. I know in some of the cities we're playing in the big rinks. I don't know if they'll sell out or not, but Toronto certainly seems to want to get behind this team. So it's exciting.
I've decided mid-conversation here that we're going to retouch in like January, February, once we've played it. You guys have played a handful of games, and I want to hear all of the operations and everything. And I'm just watching the time tick down. I feel so bad. 10 seconds about the rivalry series. I don't know if this was something you knew was coming. I forget where you were saying if this sort of showed up, it was an opportunity because it's in a couple of days' time. How are your feelings about this matchup?
Yeah, it's I've been really lucky in that, whenever one of the senior team staff can't make one of these events for whatever reason, like, it feels like every time I'm here, it's because Carolyn Ouellette is being inducted into another Hall of Fame. Like, it's just unbelievable. But every time she gets inducted, I get to come and work with the national team. So
keep it up.
So it's every time you come and work with any kind of national team, it's a huge honor. And the first two games of the rivalry went to the U.S. Obviously, it was a bit of a challenge for our group because we're a little bit older than the U.S. group in that we don't have a lot of college age players. We have a few in this event, but I didn't in the first two games of the series, and so it was the first game in quite a long time, really, for a bunch of our athletes. So I think the next two games are going to be a bit more. We have a little bit more games under our belt as Canadian athletes, and so I think it's not that that's an excuse, but it just is I think these next two games are going to be probably a little bit even higher intensity and a little bit more on the line because I know our athletes are feeling like they want to make a statement.
And I don't want to make it all about the goaltending, but Anne Renee's back, and I'm personally very happy about that. So, hey, listen, it plays a role in the game. I know there were some fresh faces in those first two, like you say, in those first two games that may have not experienced this pace of play at the national level. But I have that same feeling that Thursday is going to be, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a much tighter game, I think, than the second.
Yeah, and I think both teams the new league makes it a bit of a different twist because a lot of the athletes are playing together now. National team, I think Knight and who are the main ones in Boston, but they're playing with, our players that are in Boston as well. Like, so we've got the two national teams playing together. They've just spent 5 days together with and against each other, in Utica, and now we're setting up for this series. And so it's going to change sort of the dynamics a little bit of it. But I think whenever you pull that jersey on, it's, everyone feels that sense of it's we leave it all on the ice and we can go back to our hubs later with our teammates. But I think it'll be pretty good couple of games here.
And it's in our barn this time. So Kitchener has a crazy vibe. I don't know if you were able to make it to any of the PWHPA Dream Gap tour, but the one game in Kitchener, man, it had a playoff feel. It had this energy in the building. It was, there was a lot of people there. I think it's going to be a really exciting night. It's going to be amazing.
Well, the acoustics in there are like today. There was probably, I don't know, 300 kids, and they were just sitting and talking. The kids are just talking, watching our practice, and it was so loud. It was hard to hear. It was hard to hear on the ice and hard to explain drills on the ice because all you could hear was these kids, and they're just chatting with their friends. Like, wait until you have fans in there yelling and screaming. It's going to be loud, and I think obviously you love it. As a coach, it's frustrating at times because you're trying to talk, and especially in the timeouts, you can't hear anything. But it's a good challenge. I think the athletes are going to love it, though. It's going to be pretty wild. Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited, and I am not taking a minute more of your time, Rachel. Thank you so much. It went from full daylight to dark in the video. That's why we're not using this. This is now I'm front lit by the screen of my computer. This high-end operation I have going on out of my car currently. Thank you so much for your time. I swear to you, we're going to try and do this again, and I will be seeing you on Thursday. But thank you so much for your time. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Well, I think, this is, you always talk yourself down about what you're doing, but it's great that you're just chatting with people that are in the game because you want to learn more and you want to, let coaches like me ramble on about my philosophies and things that I want to see in the world of coaching and the world of hockey. And hopefully someone that's listening somewhere can take something away from today. And if not, it was just great to chat with you.
Oh, thank you so much. There's nobody better to listen to, I swear to you.
Well, that's it for another episode. Thank you, everybody, for coming back and putting up with me and then getting to the good stuff of Rachel. That was a fantastic interview, and I look forward to future discussions. I hope she didn't overpromise saying that we could talk again. I hope she meant that. Everybody, have a fantastic week. Enjoy the Rivalry Series tomorrow, and we'll definitely have some more episodes coming shortly before the start of the PWHL season, which we're all super excited about. And until then, I'll see you around the rink.